Hello everybody, Tim W. Rago here, games, movies, and vlogs. How the hell is everybody? And speaking of hell, Godzilla's down there, so let's see what he's been up to this week, shall we? Okay, so before we even talk about the story, can we all just take a moment to admire how awesome this cover looks? The heavy amount of detailing on not only Godzilla but the hellscape around him makes this issue my favorite one in the series. Also, I love how this comic uses a direct movie adaptation of my favorite version of Godzilla from Japan. And what I mean by that is when you look at any other Godzilla comic series, like say, for example, the Marvel Godzilla, the version of Godzilla from Rulers of Earth, and the design of him from issue number 1 of Godzilla In Hell here, each design is very unique to their respective comic stories, but they keep the overall impression. But this comic goes the extra step and uses a direct version of Godzilla from the movies, and the version that it decided to go with was the version from Godzilla 2000 and Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. I've always had a fondness for this design with the jagged dorsal fins and how all of his scales pop out. He just has this very terrifying reptilian appearance that always makes me go back to watching these two movies whenever I want to watch a Godzilla movie. Okay, that sounded a bit odd saying that, I apologize. So I love how this story uses that design, and hopefully takes the story more seriously than issue number 1. And speaking of the story, let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so before I get into the story, I'm just going to say this right now. My con with this issue is there are narration boxes throughout this entire story. I don't know why they're even here because issue number 1 didn't have a single one, and the story worked out great because of that. So the fact that there's narration boxes in issue 2 here kind of ruins it. So for this video, I'm going to completely ignore the fact that they even exist. So Godzilla emerges in another part of hell here, and he comes across another power plant, because of course he does, and there's a volcano in the background. Now can we all just appreciate, much like the cover, how breathtaking the art is in this issue? Despite the fact that this is hell, there is so much time and effort put into this. And who is that flying off to the right? Why, it's a direct movie adaptation of Rodan from his debut in 1956. Now, I apologize for the low quality picture. This was the biggest picture I was able to find of this version of Rodan. So Godzilla fires his atomic breath, and it's very interesting how Godzilla 2000's atomic breath was orange, or white-orange kind of color. So they kept it the classic blue, and I love how his dorsal fins actually have a glow to them. So he misses, and then Rodan flies back around, tries to attack Godzilla again, and then Godzilla basically just bitch slaps him with his tail, sending him, pardon the pun, flying in the opposite direction. So Godzilla just keeps on walking until he emerges into this icy area. Okay, now this is giving me some very Lovecraftian vibes right here. Like, this page reminds me of the Lovecraft story At the Mountains of Madness. So who does Godzilla encounter down here? Why, it's a direct movie adaptation of Anguirus from 1972. And just like how last week when I said that somebody at IDW had to have been a fan of John Carpenter's The Thing, well, somebody at IDW had to have been a fan of Godzilla Raids Again here, because we see a fight between Godzilla and Anguirus. And I'm sorry I keep talking about the art style so much, but it just looks so gorgeous. Like, why couldn't this whole comic series be in this style with this version of Godzilla? So after a brief fight, Godzilla just tosses Anguirus to the side here, like he's saying, I'm sick of this shit. So Godzilla once again is falling somewhere, and he lands in the Eternal Ocean, where he encounters, holy shit, it's Varan! Wow, Varan actually gets some recognition here. here. Now, for those of you who don't know, Varan had his own movie in 1958, and then 10 years later made a couple of small cameos in Destroy All Monsters, then was a playable character in a Godzilla game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and then showed up again in the 2007 Wii game Godzilla Unleashed. This monster is the definition of underrated in every sense of the word, because those 4 appearances I talked about just now, that's all he's ever been in. He was supposed to be Godzilla's final enemy in 1995, but they replaced him with Destroyer, and then in 2001 he was supposed to be fighting Godzilla alongside Anguirus and Baragon before they changed Anguirus and Baragon to, not Anguirus and Baragon, sorry, Anguirus and Varan, sorry, to Mothra and Ghidorah. Now don't get me wrong, Godzilla vs. Destroyer and GMK are 2 really great Godzilla movies, hands down. But to me, they could have been better movies if they would have just stuck with the original ideas. And speaking of GMK, a little piece of trivia on Ghidorah here. If you notice on all 3 of Ghidorah's heads, do you ever notice they look a lot like Varan? Well, the reason for that is because Varan is one of the suit maker's favorite kaiju, and he was excited that Varan was going to be in GMK, but when he found out that Varan was not going to be in the movie, he of course was very disappointed. But because of the fact that Varan is his favorite kaiju, he kind of snuck Varan in by making Ghidorah's heads look like him. So props to the suit maker for doing that. So Godzilla has this little short battle with Varan here, and they don't really explain if any of the monsters in hell here are trapped down here like Godzilla is, or they're actually demons. And I love how the story does not answer that question. So in the middle of the battle, Varan just leaves, and who shows up? None other than Ghidorah. Sorry, I kind of got tongue-tied a little bit, and by the looks of it, it's the 1991 Ghidorah, who now tries to kill Godzilla again. I don't know what the hell, he must have a serious grudge, because look at Ghidorah in the top panel. He just looks so evil in this. Like, literally, this is the most evil he's looked before King of the Monsters from 2019. And the story ends with a reference, I think this is a reference to Odysseus because of this whirlpool here that Godzilla's getting sucked into. What was that god's name? A goddess, sorry, Charybdis, I think? So this little whirlpool bit reminds me of that. And also, can we appreciate the look of the water, like you can physically see the motion of the water here? And that's the end of the story for this week. I'll say it once and I'll say it again, this issue is my absolute favorite. Every visual from the cover to each page is a definite work of art. You can tell the staff behind this took a lot of time and effort into creating a world you can get very immersed in. But again, the one thing that ruins it are the narration boxes. Issue 1 didn't have a single narration box. They let the visuals speak for themselves, so I don't understand why issue 2 did not have the luxury of that. Now from issue 1, I did enjoy seeing the two original monsters that Godzilla fights. I mean, you can tell that they drew heavy inspiration from The Thing as well as a little bit of Lovecraftian or a little bit of Hellboy actually. But for issue number 2, it was sorry, I kind of stuttered there for a second. It was really cool to see some recognizable monsters such as Anguirus, Varan, who really needs to be in another movie, Rodan, and Ghidorah. And personally, I really do like the fact that the looks of not only Godzilla but every monster is a direct movie adaptation, because it just makes the story all the more impactful. So overall, Godzilla in Hell issue number 2, great visuals and great seeing more recognizable monsters. But my 2 things with this are, 1, the narration boxes were very unnecessary, and also I think this issue should have been just a little bit longer because the monster battles were really short. They could have at least made the fights with Anguirus and Rodan a little bit longer. So overall, Godzilla in Hell issue number 2 gets a 4.5 out of 5. Alright, so I hope you all enjoyed episode 2 here of my comic review series. Please be sure to like, share, and consider subscribing. I truly do appreciate it. All the support that you guys give the channel gives me more motivation to keep making content for you guys. Also, on the bottom right corner are the links to my Instagram and my DeviantArt, so if you want to, come and follow me there as well. So yeah, this is Tim W. Rago, and I'm going to say peace out everybody, and I'll see you all next week with, oh god, oh no, I am not looking forward to that.